was George Harrison? George Harrison was an English musician, songwriter, singer, and lead guitarist of the Beatles, one of the most influential bands in the history of popular music. Let's go ahead and dive into the life of George Harrison. Hi, and welcome to the Beatles Wings. If you're curious about the Beatles or just want to know more, you've come to the right place. You can get real facts here because I'm a huge fan and I've read and researched all my material. So if by the end of this video you are completely satisfied, like, subscribe, comment, and share. Now let's get back to the video. George Harrison was born on February 25th, 1943 in Liverpool, England, to Harold and Louise Harrison. He grew up in a working-class family and was deeply influenced by skiffle music and rock and roll in the 1950s. In 1958, Harrison joined a local band called the Quarrymen, led by John Lennon, and this eventually evolved into the Beatles, with Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, and Harrison forming the core lineup. Harrison's contributions to the Beatles included his distinctive lead guitar playing, songwriting, and occasional lead vocals. He wrote several hit songs for the band, including Here Comes the Sun, Something, and While My Guitar Gently Weeps. His interest in Indian culture and spirituality also influenced the Beatles' music and popularized the use of Indian instruments such as the sitar in Western pop music. He also became a devotee of Indian guru Maharishi Mahayogi. The Beatles achieved unprecedented success and became one of the most influential bands in music history. George Harrison had been married twice in his lifetime and had one child. His first marriage was to Pattie Boyd on January 21, 1966. She was a model and a photographer. They met on the set of the Beatles film A Hard Day's Night. Their marriage lasted until 1977, and they divorced due to personal differences. They did not have any children together. George's second marriage was to Olivia Trinidad Aries on September 2, 1978. They had met in the late 1970s when Olivia was working as a secretary for Dark Horse Records, Harrison's record label. They remained married until George's passing in 2001. Together they had one son. Danny Harrison was born on August 1, 1978. He followed in his father's footsteps as a musician and has been involved with various music projects, including the band The New Number 2. Danny has also collaborated with other artists and released solo work. He also continues to maintain his father's musical legacy while also forging his own path in the music industry. After the Beatles disbanded in 1970, Harrison pursued a solo career, releasing acclaimed albums such as All Things Must Pass in 1970. Which included the hit single My Sweet Lord. He also organized the concert for Bangladesh in 1971, one of the first large-scale benefit concerts to raise funds for the refugees in Bangladesh. Harrison continued to release solo albums and collaborate with other artists throughout the 1970s and 1980s. He was also involved in film production, including founding Handmade Films, which produced movies such as the Monty Python's Life of Brian in 1979. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Harrison experienced renewed success with the Traveling Wilburys, a supergroup featuring Bob Dylan, Roy Orbison, Tom Petty, and Jeff Lynne. The group released 2 albums which were well received by critics and fans. In 1997, George Harrison was diagnosed with throat cancer. He underwent treatment, including surgery to remove the cancerous growth from one of his lungs, and received radiation therapy. Tragedy strikes the Harrison family again just 2 years later on December 30th, 1999, when George Harrison was attacked and stabbed multiple times by an intruder at his home in Friar Park in England. The assailant, Michael Abram, who was reportedly suffering from paranoid schizophrenia, broke into Harrison's home and attacked him with a kitchen knife. Harrison suffered serious injuries, including a punctured lung, but was eventually able to subdue the attacker with the help of his wife Olivia and their son Danny. Abram was charged with attempted murder but was later found not guilty by reason of insanity. He was detained indefinitely in a psychiatric facility. The incident was a traumatic experience for George Harrison and his family, but eventually recovered from his physical injuries. It was one of the most notable events in his later life, though Harrison himself downplayed the significance in subsequent interviews, choosing to focus on music and spiritual beliefs. In 2001, George Harrison's cancer returned, spreading to his brain and causing further complications. Despite his declining health, Harrison continued to work on music and other projects. He spent his final months in Los Angeles with his family. George Harrison passed away on November 29, 2001, at the age of 58, due to the complications from his battle with cancer. His death was mourned by fans worldwide, and his legacy as a pioneer musician and spiritual thinker continues to endure. George Harrison's contributions to music, both as a member of the Beatles and as a solo artist, continue to be celebrated by fans worldwide.